Senator Holmstrom.
Yeah, I have a question for Senator Fatah. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead. Okay. What's your question? Go ahead.
The Sheriff's Association has correctly asserted that this bill will likely destroy all federal and state local partnerships. These partnerships are crucial in prosecuting fraud like Feeding Our Future, and obviously will be necessary in prosecuting the $9 billion in fraud moving forward. So I'll just plainly ask you, was it your intent to make these investigations harder, or was the goal just to undermine fraud investigations explicitly into the future?
Senator Fatah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Holmstrom, or Senator, I apologize, for that question. And the answer is no. But what we have seen is that at least 14 federal prosecutors have resigned, including the lead prosecutor for Feeding Our Future. So this operation has not been about fraud. It's been made far worse by jeopardizing the current cases that we've seen, and that's a direct result about the actions from our federal government. And if anyone else wants to jump in, I'll allow them to.
Senator Champion.
And just briefly, again, there was no intent at all in order to undermine any investigation or nothing of the sort. In fact, if you look at the second division, the subdivision 2, really what we're saying is that if a federal agency or others are going to be here and wants to partner with our local agencies, that they abide by the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the Minnesota Constitution, and that's really what they should be doing anyway. But we just explicitly make certain that that is the information that they would have to abide by in subdivision 2.
Any further discussion or questions from members of the committee? Senator Holmstrom.
Follow up to that, are you saying that it's an unintended consequence that it shuts down all the fraud investigations? Because to this point, the only effective fraud investigations, or at least wholesale, have been from the federal agencies, which require help from local authorities.
Senator Holmstrom, if complying with the Constitution shuts down an investigation, then the investigation ought to be shut down. Any further discussion from members of the committee? Not seeing anything further. Senator Kroon, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question is for the authors. We have in our packets a letter from the Minnesota Sheriff's Association that's where Senator Holmstrom's quote just came from. And I'm just wondering if in drafting or creating this bill, that if you've worked with the Sheriff's Association or any other law enforcement agencies.
Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the questions, Senator Kroon. We are open to working with anyone, but we did not work with them specifically on this particular bill, but we did take their thoughts, or what we would believe their thoughts, into consideration. For an example, there was a concern that they expressed that this is duplicative of Section 1983 and will lead to costly and unnecessary litigation. That's incorrect. Because the federal civil rights statute, Section 1983, only applies to suing state and local officials for federal constitutional violations. There is no mechanism right now for federal officials to be sued under 1983. There was another concern that was expressed by them around Bivens, and saying that the U.S. Supreme Court precedent is a viable remedy for federal abuse cases, so that this state-based cause of action is redundant. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm not certain if you're in the room, but the Bivens decision has been dramatically narrowed over the years, making it almost impossible to hold federal officials accountable for constitutional violations. In fact, I mentioned that it's been 50 years, 50. And no action of the Bivens Act for over 50 years. So we don't believe there is a problem there. There was one additional concern that was stated around that state and local task forces wouldn't be able to function. We believe that they would be able to function, and clearly what we are doing here is not to subvert or deter or create a problem for individuals to enter into agreements. We just want the individuals to agree that they're going to function by the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the Minnesota Constitution.
Senator Fatah.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to add a little bit to that context as well. And so This is also a piece of legislation that is also, we also see in the STAR Act, which is legislation that was also drafted 2 years ago. And a coalition of 50-plus organizations have been working together on that. And so within the STAR Act, there's multiple different sections. And within those sections, the sheriffs, as well as law enforcement from other jurisdictions, there's been multiple meetings on it as well. And so while there hasn't been specifically for this bill, within the STAR Act, there has been conversations with law enforcement.
Senator Kroon, follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we're creating under your bill would be creating a new cause of action that the Sheriff's Association says would destroy longstanding law enforcement partnerships that have taken apart major criminal enterprises and caused the capture of some of the most dangerous criminals in Minnesota. It goes on further to say it will devastate federal and state partnerships designed to vigorously pursue social services fraud. Now, you may disagree with what's in the sheriff's letter, but I think what this highlights is that before we go and embark on any major change, creating a new cause of action, where the Sheriff's Association has strong words like that, I think we need to have all stakeholders at the table take everything into consideration to make sure that we aren't blowing up all sorts of partnerships that we have with the federal government, because there are many that do many, many good things. And so you have to worry about unintended consequences, if that's what you claim the devastation of the federal and state partnerships designed to vigorously pursue social services fraud is. If you claim that's an unintended consequence, we need to get to the bottom of that. We need to have everybody at the table and make sure that we're doing this in the right way. So from my perspective, this isn't even close to being ready to do the kind of work that we typically do here in the Judiciary Committee to make sure that we have all stakeholders at the table and that we've thoroughly vetted a major piece of legislation like this.
Senator Champion.
Briefly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Kroon. Senator Kroon, I just want to be extremely clear, is that it appears to me that we do think it's an important principle for all stakeholders to be at the table. There's nothing that would suggest that those stakeholders should not be at the table. But I didn't hear you say that you think that Minnesotans should have a right of action when their constitutional rights are violated, and that, in fact, what we're attempting to do is give Minnesotans a tool for when their constitutional rights are violated. I believe that you're a constitutional scholar, so I'd love to hear you suggest that agents, the federal government, and individuals should not be held responsible when they violate a person's constitutional rights. So you focused on what the state or what the Sheriff's Association said, and we'll certainly talk to them and see what they say. But, Mr. Chair, we would love to hear Senator Kroon tell us that it is not important for Minnesotans to have their constitutional rights protected.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Limmer.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Kroon, did you have a follow-up? Or you and Senator Limmer can wrestle for who goes.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Kroon.
Chair. Well, since Senator Champion called me out and wants me to say something I'm not quite sure about, good intentions are just good intentions, Senator Champion. We're making law here, okay? So while your intentions may be noble, and of course, I take constitutional rights very seriously, okay? But we're making law, and we have to think about unintended consequences. We have to think about the several state, federal, local partnerships that we have in place to make sure that we aren't disrupting what the Sheriff's Association is saying, that we're taking apart major criminal enterprises and that have caused the capture and some of the most dangerous criminals in Minnesota. I would assume you don't want that to happen either. And you're in a conclusory fashion saying, well, I just don't agree with what the sheriffs are saying. All due respect, we need to vet this out so that we can accomplish protection of constitutional rights without making sure that we're not blowing up all of our state, local, and federal partnerships that are doing very good work, including combating fraud here in Minnesota.
Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Senator Kroon, you never answered the question. The question is, do you believe that Minnesotans deserve to have a tool when their constitutional rights have been violated by the federal government? I've been very clear in saying that with the Sheriff's Department, as anyone else, that I do think it's important for us to talk to those stakeholders, engage those stakeholders, listen to those stakeholders, and put forth what we believe to be important as well so that we can talk, because it's about Minnesotans. So we don't have a problem with that. But I did state, Mr. Chair, and this will be my last comment, that I did want to have the constitutional expert, which I believe that Senator Kroon is supposed to also be, talk about the importance of whether he thinks Minnesotans should have a tool when their constitutional rights are violated.